couple of people that I make a video about this picture, how I edited and what I really did with it. This version you see here is the one that after did some work in Camera Raw already, and this one is the uncropped and unedited version. So that was straight out of camera, really, and it happened to be like this after I worked some in Camera Raw. It wasn't much work involved, but I'll show you in a second. So I'm going to do exactly the same how I did the editing. There are a couple of things that I would change now, I would do in a different way. I will talk about that, but I'm trying to show you exactly what I did when I edited this picture. So I left the camera profile, camera standard. Sometimes I change to flat. Sometimes it depends really. How it changes the picture a lot. So sometimes I go through it and have a look which one looks better. Obviously this one will give you more dynamic range, but I didn't need it this time, so I thought this one is looking pretty much alright. If I work in camera flat, it probably turns out to be something else. Probably not bad, but it's not what I wanted this time. So basically I left the contrast as it is. This is the base for camera standard, and I definitely changed the exposure a little bit, just about yep, I changed the exposure there. Let's see about the temperature. I wanted this picture much warmer. It's quite, well, it's not bluish, but if you're talking about an autumn day with leaves like that, it definitely needs some more warmth. So I took it up all the way to 8,800. That was my temperature I've chosen there. I actually left the tint wherever it was. Vibrance and saturation I didn't change at all. Then after, in the effects, well, I already have the base +8 for the texture, +4 for the clarity. I wouldn't touch these, they're just looking good enough. When you talk about texture, look at the clothes, it's pretty good. And there's one more thing I normally do in here, which is the calibration. So you have this calibration profile here, and I normally like to play around with the blue. That's what I use more often. So I don't normally change the hues. Well, it depends on the picture. But when you have a look, you change the saturation of the red. So everything goes a lot more orange, which can be useful with this picture, but I'm not going to use it now. What I want really is like an overall. Let's see the greens. You see, it's giving a lot more of the yellows. It's going to make them much stronger. And then the blues. I like the blues a lot because when you have a look, that's basically what's blue on this picture. That little bit there, it's maybe even black, not blue, but her scarf and her jumper. But look what it does to the overall picture. The look. You see that? I would take it up to about 25, and let's see the before after. See before, after, before, after. Everything is so much more vibrant. I normally like to play around with this slider, and that's that really. I mean, that's what I did in Camera Raw, and it's already looking way better. Well, probably I did a crop as well, and I just wanted them to be in the middle, really. don't remember my crop exactly, but I think that was it, sort of. They're just in the middle. Okay, so I open it, and as a next step, because what I used to do, I like to light up the middle of the picture a little bit, so you know there's more attention to them because there's more light in here. It kind of draws your eye, so you can do that with a curve tool. um, you know, just raising the highlights. I'll show you. If you know this, that, you know, just don't pay attention, just have a coffee in the meantime. If you don't know this, then so you can do that, and then you just change the mask to black, and you mask it out like with a big brush like that, maybe about 40% opacity, and just, you know, you do that, you do that, and it is much lighter in the middle. Maybe I would go even a bit more brave, like 50%. It's looking pretty good, I think. So just around the middle, it's like you creating a vignette effect, but in a more subtle way. So it's not like so direct than when you do it in camera raw. So it has its edges and everything, but with a soft brush you can do it a bit better, I think. There we go. And you have more light and then more light in the background. But what I also do, I create a new layer, and I go into filter, camera raw filter, and I actually love these new features, which is I'm going to select my subject. So they almost perfectly selected. I wouldn't bother masking the edges or anything, because what we are going to do really is we are going to invert this mask. So now we have the background selected. Well, I could start with that, and we're just going to also use the curves to light the background like that, just about there. Maybe it's even too much. I try to do the very same what I did. Press OK, and I create a mask which I'm going to invert again, and I'm going to use a brush. Let's do it around 40% with a large soft brush, and I'm going to brush in here. And remember, because only the background was selected on this layer, it won't affect them, but you can still create this kind of glow behind them in the background. You see, it doesn't affect them at all, but they have this glow around, so which is really good. And I think because the hairs are darker, the clothes are darker, I think it just creates a very nice separation. I love this tool that you can select the subject and then play around with the curves and all. I mean, that was a game changer for me when it came in as an update in Photoshop. Okay, then what I do is I have my action set up. I have the dodge and burn, and straight away gives me a black and white hair per layer. And I just zoom in a little bit because what I want to work on is really the clothes and the hair right now, maybe this area on her face. So I'm going to use the dodge. That's where I always start. And I see people using the opacity at 30% or 40% or whatever. But I have a problem with that. I don't like to use, I used to do that, but it has a limit to it. But if I put the opacity at 100% and I take the flow down, and I'm going to use the flow around maybe 3%, obviously I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller so it's possible to use. Make sure your mask is black and your brush is white, so you have 100% opacity and 3% flow, and you have more control over this because you're painting. So when you do dodge and burning, you're painting, and you have more control how much, if let's say this was paint, you have more control how much paint you apply to the clothes. If some areas you want less, you give less, and some areas you want more, you give more. But with the option of, you know, the flow 100% and the opacity being let's say 40%, there is an end to it, because you can only apply a certain amount of glow to the highlights, because it stops at 30% if you set it to 30%. I hope you know what I mean. This gives me a bit more, you know, let's say the hand here is really dark. So if I want to light it up, I just keep lighting it up. I'm not going to change anything. I have time. I'm not going to change the opacity or anything. This is perfect. But if I had it in, you know, 30% here, I wouldn't be able to light it up. I had to change my settings here, and you know, I just don't like that. It's just my workflow, but you know, everyone does whatever is more comfortable for them. I just want to light it up here a little bit, and 3% with the flow is actually quite subtle. There's nothing crazy there, so you have a lot of space to play around. This is really nice. So I like to add some glow to the leaves, and then we go in her hair a little bit. Just, you know, it's not much very strong highlight in there, but whatever we have, it trying to you know, to make it stronger. And then his clothes and the leaves, maybe his hand, not that one, is already too shiny. And just do your dodge and burn. It's with the pictures, I'm always like, do your dodge and burn is like, do brush your teeth, you know. It's kind of necessary for me, every single picture. But some people don't do that and they live happily without. But I always find it helps a lot on my pictures. It gives them a bit more, you know, people asking these questions in groups like, how do you have these 3D effects? And to be honest, the best way to get it is when you do dodge and burn, and you do it in a way that, you know, it takes a lot of practice, and you find your ways. Like I find my ways with this flow trick. I've been to so many workshops and I saw people actually using the opacity as the main controller for the dodge and burn, and I never find it very satisfying, that way to do that. I always find it a bit like I was limited. But with this version of dodge and burn that I do, I feel much better. You know, you give it a try, and if you don't like it, you can still do it in a different way, but it's worth a try. Okay, a bit in his hair. There's actually more highlights, so he got more light in his hair. And let's make it a bit more lively. So that's how you create a 3D effect on things, because you, with the highlights and the shadows, that you control how much depth in his hair, because obviously the shadows are deeper in, and the highlights are the ones that are out, so they get the light reflecting from them. And I go through 3% with a burn as well. Sometimes it's 3%, sometimes it's 2. Sometimes I like to use it less strong than the dodge part, and this time I just keep it 3%. Still talking about the flow. It is looking really nice. And then just go through the darker areas to make them more kind of visible, like a bit stronger. And not everywhere, because let's say, for example, here, we're reaching the black, like, you know, it's nothing visible there. I go through, you know, it's a question of taste, like how much contrast you want to achieve on a particular image, and you do what you like. That's what you do. And here the creases on the bag. I have this cold, so my voice is a bit funny, but I'm getting over it soon. So yeah, I think we're getting there. There we go. That's some depth with the shadows. Okay, so if I've done the dodge and burn, and this is with the helper layer, and this is without. So the helper layer is basically something that, because it's black and white, it's easier to see what is dark and what is light. So your eyes can separate the dark and light much easier because it's not concentrating on the colors. So you see, you'd probably see it anyway, but it's just, I don't know, it is way easier. Once someone showed this to me, and I've been using this ever since. So let's see what before and after shows us. See, let's see the whole picture. There and there. You see, they have much more contrast and much more glow. They look way better on this picture now. Okay, so we done the dodge and burn, and on the clothes and the hair. We didn't do anything to the faces. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything at this point. So what I was going to do, other thing helps them to pop out, is brightness and contrast. And look, let's keep putting the next adjustment layer into my dodge and burn. I don't know, it's been a bug for forever in Photoshop. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to increase the brightness just about there, and the contrast just about there. When you see the overall picture, see, everything is so strong, it's just like a kick in your eye. But what we're going to do is we're going to mask it in to the clothes, nowhere else. So just let me zoom in and grab a brush, and this time, because it's not dodge and burn, I decide how much my opacity should be. So I will go with about 40%, and my flow is 100% this time, and I'm just going to paint it in on the clothes. On the clothes, there we go. We leave the skin alone, we get the clothes, and we get the hair, and just it is going to make it pop even more without ruining the whole picture, you know, too much clarity or too much saturation, or, you know, it's just going to look really good. Brightness and contrast. You have to make it settle. You can't just, you know, look at the whole picture. It's not a big change. But when you see the clothes before, after, before, after, it's much more life to it now. Okay. Now I'm going to create a new layer. I'm still doing exactly what I did, but this step I just can't trace it back because I don't remember how much I changed. I'm trying to recreate the whole lot. So basically, I made a note for myself. For here, it says create more orange and reduce green. So basically, what I possibly done, it's because it's a lot of greenish yellowish tint in here. So I probably grabbed this, and I took it down to the left. So my oranges and my yellows are changing, and they're going into more reddish and more So basically my orange is going from yellow to red, and my yellow is going from green to orange. So that makes the whole picture looking a bit more, yeah, there we go. I think just about there. So when you see before, after, before, after. So it's not like a crazy look, but still I made some leftover greens disappear and make it a bit more autumn, which, you know, these colors are really there, but when you adjust, it's just going to look better. Okay, sorry. So before and after, before and after. Maybe their face is a little bit too reddish now, but I'm going to deal with that in a minute. Yes, I'll keep it this way. I put a mask and I'm going to just brush out the face a little bit, maybe 40% of opacity, just like that. Yeah, so it's not too red. The hair is a bit too red now. I'm going to brush this out because she doesn't have red hair. So just, you know, get rid of this extra redness of the hair and the facial skin. So there we go. They get a bit more color, more orangey color, which is good. They're not green, but they're not red. They're somehow in the middle. I think it's just really good color on the skin. Okay, and then what we're going to do, just another dodge and burn layer. This is going to be a quick one, which is going to deal with their face. And this time I'm going to use the brush at 20%, and I'm just going to paint over the face with a white brush, just like that, just like that. It's looking pretty good. I wouldn't even do more. Just set the changes. That's going to make so much difference. You see? Maybe even too much. Look. That's why I don't like the 20% or 30% opacity, because then, you know, you have to change the opacity on the layer itself, and then it makes things more complicated if you want to work in batches of photos. But it's looking good now. They have more light. She lost some of the shadow. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Maybe a bit more down, maybe to 30%. Very subtle changes. Okay, but I'll have to add a bit more contrast on the clothes. Maybe around there. Maybe around there, and I'm going to mask it, and I'm going to use this because it's not dodge and burn again. I love to use the opacity, and just, you know, question of taste again. I'm just going to use that as a controller for my contrast, which I put here right now. Let's see how it changed. Let's take it out of the dodge and burn group. The clothes, you see, it's looking more stronger, the shadows and the highlights. This is again a very subtle change, but when I put all this into a group, let's see what it does. You see, I open the group, and now I can turn off, on and off, what I've done so far. And this is before, and this is after. This is before, and this is after. So basically, it's flat greenish, grayish image. It turned into a more lively autumn scene. Okay, so there's another thing I like to do. Let's stay in a group and create a new layer. And there is something that I really like to do with these images, is I'm going to light, oops, that's there, I take the highlights down a little bit so it doesn't show this clipping in the highlights, and I click on this warning. So I'm going to change my whites, and I'm going to change, as long as it's not clipping, it's not much now, it's +7, it lets me do that, but it's very easy to clip in this image. There's so many highlights, but normally the whites, they're giving so much more life to a picture. Okay, I can't show it on this picture now. It's only a very little change now. Okay, it's looking good. And then I'm going to use something which I haven't used in a while, and I returned to it recently. And what I really want to do is to create, look at these leaves. They're orange, but they're like rusty orange. And I imagine something as a little bit different color here, and maybe add some of it here as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play around with the reds and find a more pleasing color, because this rusty orange is um, not what I like. So I'm just going to change something here. Let's say here +8, and add here maybe that much. So it looks very reddish now. No, it does look. But what I'm going to do really is, again, I'm going to change the mask to black. And obviously I'm not going to, because when I change it to white, look, the face is red, the ear, the hair, everything is red. But I just want to change these leaves a little bit. So I'm going to change the mask. And what I'm going to do is keep the opacity around 40%. And with the white brush, I'm just going to paint this in. So the reds are going to be a bit more reds, and not, they won't look like rust, you know. Just around there. There we go. And maybe I add some here, so the foreground has a bit more separation. And there we go. You see, when you look now, it's a bit more color contrast in there. I may add some here just to, you know, just to highlight this color a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I got that. And what I noticed here is I had a step when I was doing this picture, that the road, because the road shouldn't be red, should it? It turned red with the previous step when I was actually changing my oranges in camera raw. So what I would do here is I open a curve layer, I go to red, and I'm going to pick the road, and I will bring the red down a little bit, because the road is not actually red, only the leaves around and on it. So again, I'm going to change the layer to black, and I won't be too careful. I'm just going to paint over the areas I don't want red, really. So I'll leave some red on it because there's, like, you know, the leaves and all. And I wanted them red originally. But wherever I can see the road, I try to give some of the original color back. Because if the road looks red as well, it looks a bit silly. Just here as well. See? And let's see the before after. See, very red, not red, very red, not red. um, there's a little changes, but they make so much difference. And and that's it. And I was wondering that maybe I create another curves layer, and I'm just going to raise the midtones a little bit, just to create a bit more life in the middle of the picture. And I'm going to go in with about 40% and just, paint over like that. That's it. And maybe I'll bring some back from the faces, especially on her, because it might be a bit too much. And I change it to black, and now about 40% I bring it back there, so they don't shine too much. So there we go. It is looking a bit better. So that's another curve layer giving light in the middle of the picture. And sometimes I use the vignette in camera raw filter, but I just honestly not a big fan of it. And I think that's what I've done with this picture. You can do more, but why? I mean, it's looking good. For example, when I go in here, I see there's plenty of noise. So what you could do, for example, I don't know if you ever use Topaz, probably many of you using it. I just go in there and let's do Topaz sharpen, and it says here very noisy. So I would use that definitely, because it is quite noisy. Well, it's an almost 50 megapixel camera in the dark. It was quite dark actually. And I won't use it 100% because it will take things away from this picture. But I'm going to apply, and I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit. But I'm pretty sure this will help the picture. Maybe I don't even take the opacity down. It is just looking good. Okay. So that's it really. And if you want to see the before and after, before and after, before and after, and it is looking way better. So I sit here for how long? Half an hour maybe, not even that long. And I was doing slower because I was explaining what I was doing. This is what I've done, and it is looking pretty good for me. Thank you for watching.